everyone, my name is Taryn and thank you so much for stopping by my channel, Nicole Flower House. This channel is all about my cut flower garden and I'm located in zone 7B. This week I just wanted to step out into the garden. It's kind of a gloomy day, so it's perfect for shooting video. The birds are singing and I just wanted to give you an update on the cut flower garden and how everything is going. Here are a lot of my seedlings. They've been hardening off for a while now and are definitely ready to be planted out. This tray right here is eucalyptus. I just have it out getting some sun, but it is not ready to be planted out. Same thing with this basil. I'm just working on getting this one hardened off, but we still have frost likely in our forecast, so it can't get planted out yet. Here are more seedlings that are definitely ready. These are all frost tolerant, so they can go into the garden. I have stock. These are carnations, my willow cuttings, more stock. I have a lot of that. Snapdragons. This tray has scabiosa, some calendula, and marigolds. This is cress. This was kind of an experiment. I just overseeded this with a lot of seeds to see how this would do. I'll probably just plant this out and see what happens. This is my backup tray of ranunculus. Some of these did not germinate, so this side were my Toma Red variety. They were pretty old, so I'm not surprised there, but these ones look good and can go into the garden soon. This hellebore is putting out so many blooms. And on a previous video, I wasn't sure how they were doing, but it looks like they just needed more time. And these ones right here are maturing nice, so when they have this seed pod, that's a good time to cut them. So these are going to be able to be cut soon. Back here I have sweet peas, some more cress, and I know this is supposed to be direct seeded, but they look okay, so I'm still going to plant those out. I have a second tray of sweet peas, and these I've already pinched. So they look small, but they've been pinched, so they're recovering and can be planted out. And these are ornamental kale, or they actually might be a cabbage. I'm not really sure. I'll have to look, but I've never done this before. But these are definitely also ready to go out into the garden. But it's good to have them really close together like this. See how they're growing really leggy and tall and putting, their bloom per se up here at the top. That's what you want, I think. This is my first time growing these, but they are looking so cool, and I already feel like next year I'm going to want more of these. This bed right here, I direct seeded some poppies, and it looks like they are coming up nicely. Different varieties in here. There's also weeds. This year I'm getting better at being able to figure out what is a weed and what is a poppy. Last year I really struggled with that. So there is some cleaning up in this bed that I can do, but so far I'm really happy with what I have. Over here I have some daffodils. I don't really use these for cutting, but they are pretty when they do bloom, and I just let them stay here. Above it, though, is what I really wanted to show you. These are thornless raspberries, and I've read that this foliage is really good. Erin from Floral, in her book, Cut Flower Garden, talks about raspberry foliage in arrangements. So I'm excited to have this year. I don't have a lot. I'm hoping that I can get it to spread and fill up this fence line here, and it's supposed to have good vase life too. These are some Lisianthus that I planted last year that never bloomed, but I'm trying to get them to hold on through our winter. It looks like they've survived. Despite all of the crazy weed pressure, I'm having a lot of trouble keeping this bed clear, but I'm not sure if they will bloom for me or not. Definitely last year they went into this rosetting stage where they put on a lot of green foliage and never sent out blooms. So I'll see what happens with them this year. I've also ordered Lisianthus plugs from Farmer Bailey for this year because I just was terrible at growing these seedlings. And I thought I would give the plugs a try since it seems like I can overwinter the Lisianthus. Now, if I had to get new plugs every year, I probably wouldn't do that, but if I can make them perennial, I'm going to try. This bed, I heavily threw down some cilantro and parsley seeds. That was a while ago, and it looks like maybe now I'm just starting to get some parsley coming up. And I did get a little bit of cilantro, but not as much as I was hoping for. So what I will likely do is overseed some plug trays so I can get some parsley and cilantro plugs in here. My goal with the cilantro and the parsley is for it to bolt and go to flower. I use those in my cut flower arrangements. It's not hard here in our zone for cilantro and parsley to bolt because we have such warm weather in the spring and in the summer. That's something I did last year, so I'm looking forward to doing that again this year. All of my David Austin roses have been transplanted to their new spots in the rose garden. I will show you that in a little bit, but it kind of looks like a lot of destruction here. You'll also notice that a lot of my tulips are bloomed out, so I just haven't been able to keep up with them, and that's okay. I'm learning how many tulips are too many tulips and kind of what I have a sales outlet for. Tulips are something that needs sold right away when they're ready, unless you have a walk-in cooler to hold them longer. I did not have a walk-in cooler. I still don't have a walk-in cooler, but I ended up getting a chest freezer that is able to convert into a refrigerator. So that is something I'm looking forward to learning how to use for future seasons. This year, I'm just learning a lot about volume, how much volume I can harvest, how much volume I can take care of, and how much volume I can sell. So I'm not really going to get down on myself about all of these excess tulips that I have. And a lot of these can still be pulled. Ew, what is this? Oh, I thought that was disease, but it's just dirt. Anyways, a lot of these are still good. I can still pull these and get them into the cooler, and so not everything is a fail, but that is definitely something I'm learning about. I'm also able to sell some of these at my new shop, but I'm only selling about 1, maybe 2 arrangements per day, and that's 16 tulips. And I have thousands of tulips, so that is something I need to work on is my sales outlets. I love everyone's suggestions about getting in contact with nursing homes for my extra flowers, and that is something I am working on. I just haven't had anything set up quite yet. We did have some warm, sunny days recently, so that's why a lot of these popped, and I was really busy, so I wasn't able to get out here and pull these soon enough. But you can see I also have varieties that aren't even at their color cracked stage yet. So all of these tulips are still good for me to pull. Now my new cooler is also something I am learning about. My first batch of tulips that I put in there, I froze. I had the settings too cold, and so I adjusted that. So hopefully the next round is okay. Miraculously, that round of tulips did not get ruined. I took some out and they opened up just fine. I think tulips may be the only thing I could have gotten away with, that situation of freezing them and thawing them. So that's good that I learned that on the tulips. I don't want to do that again. So I'm definitely going to err on the side of too warm versus too cold, because any other flower, if I would have frozen, I would have ruined every single one. This variety right here has to be my favorite. So that's another thing I'm learning as these bloom out in the field, is which ones I absolutely adore and feel like I need more of. That's definitely this variety right here. We'll go look at the tag. Beyond Baroque. Pink, purple, and burgundy, mid-late, so these are really good timing. Height 16 to 20 inches, so nice and tall. And they're just beautiful double tulips. I love these ones. Let's pull this one right here because it's so gorgeous and I want to take it inside. Look at that. Gorgeous. So beautiful. Another exciting thing I have to tell you is that the ranunculus are ready. Look at these. The first flush looking nice. Some of these are on the short side. That's okay. But they are beautiful. I love ranunculus. Look at the color on this one. This one's a shorty, but she's beautiful still. I have some more ranunculus popping up over here. And these ones, maybe okay. I'm not sure what this is. This is not good. This one looks nice and healthy. This one looks good. So this plant, actually I might just pull because I don't know what's going on with it and I don't like that. So sorry, but this one's got to come out. When I see stuff like that, I just don't want that spreading to other ones. So we're going to get rid of this guy. These are all looking good though. The rest of them look good. That one I'll have to keep my eye on. Lots of blooms coming up. This anemone bed is so gorgeous. All these colors. And right now, these are probably more bloomed out than they should be. This right here is probably a really good stage to cut, or even a little more closed. Maybe even like this. Here, this one is where I would like to cut this as well. You can cut them even more closed, but I find sometimes they won't open if you do that. The next thing I want to show you is our new sunflower tunnel. I have a hard time growing sunflowers because of deer, and so I wanted sunflowers really, really bad. So we built this tunnel. We used the same goat panels that we used for the rose arbor. And I just have them up on T-posts. And I will be making a gate for both sides. Now, the one thing I didn't really think of is I didn't give myself much room to walk down this on either side between the box and the panel. I have done it. It's not great, but I can get through there. So I think I'm going to suffer through it for 1 year and see how it goes. I don't plan on being in this space very much, just once a week or so to cut and then re-sow new seeds. If I make the tunnel wider, then it becomes shorter. So I don't want to do that if I don't have to. I'm going to put hardware cloth down in the bottom of this box before I put dirt in it, because that will keep voles out and field mice. And I'm also planning on using this for ranunculus next fall. I also want to put my sweet peas on here and they can climb up this trellis. Well, I will take you through the tunnel. I'm just going to walk right down the middle of it for now since there's no plants in there. But once the sunflowers are in, I won't be able to take this easy route, and I'll be shimmying my way down the sides. Okay, here it is. Here is the rose garden. I have everything planted in here as far as roses. I followed some spacing recommendations for creating a hedge. It looks really close together, but I'm going to just prune things as I need to so that I can still access everything. There are a total of, let me think in my head, 39 plus 12, so 51. There's 51 roses in here. And then I have 8 more out in front. I did transplant the David Austin roses. Everyone has survived so far, but they've only been here a day. We're supposed to get rain today. I'm really excited about that because this overcast, cooler weather and the rain would definitely help these babies transplant better. They're doing okay. They don't look super happy, but they don't look awful. I'm really happy with the way this is going so far. Nobody has lost all of their leaves yet. Some are a little wilty, but that's okay. And also, I will be pruning these to better fit their spaces next fall, well, next winter. So it looks a little wonky now, but as the years go on, I'll get it shaped up. Strawberry Hill Rose is still doing okay. She's got green growth on her still. No rose is going to like being transplanted, especially when it's not dormant. You can move roses when they're not dormant. It's just be prepared for a little bit of transplant shock. They might defoliate a little bit. They're not going to like it, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. See this one? This one's a little sad, but we still have foliage that is surviving. The canes are nice and green. I know it's a little early to tell. This one here is a little more upset than the other ones. So hopefully we're going to recover here. This overcast day is doing me a big favor with these roses. And here's Miss Desdemona. She doesn't look very happy. She's lost a lot of her foliage, but she's still okay. Still okay. We'll keep watching and waiting and see what happens. If I don't get rain today, I will water these tomorrow. Now most of my bare roots look fine. I'm not sure how long it'll take for them to put on new growth, but they're looking good. This one right here has a shoot on it already, so that's promising. This one, Neptune. There we go. That's a purple variety. I have a bunch of different colors. I'm just so happy that I finally got this project done. I've got the roses in the ground. Don't have that hanging over me anymore. And there is plenty of space in here for me to plant some annuals. That's part of my weed suppression plan, is to plant annuals in here so there's not bare ground. And then as the roses get bigger, we'll have less and less annuals to fill in the spaces. And speaking of annuals, we have my new garden mats here that I will be trialing out this year. This is to help with weed suppression. It's a woven ground cover, so water and air gets through, but sunlight doesn't. I like the green color better than the black because it is very hot here. I'm in North Carolina, so I'm hoping this will be okay. I may need to rework my plan and maybe try to do my heat-loving stuff in these, like my celosias and zinnias. I'm not sure what I already had planned for these areas, but I may revise it a little bit. I'm also not having as many seedlings as I planned. My germination rates are just pretty low this year, probably because my seeds are old. And so I'm just going to plant what I have, and if I need a second succession of things, that'll be great. It's going to force me to learn how to do succession planting. Here are some dahlia beds. This one I've got weeded already, and this is really fun. Look, they're starting to put on new growth. I left these old sticks in here so I knew where they were. This happened last year. They did tolerate a light frost, these little sprouts, so hopefully that'll be similar this year. That is why I like leaving my dahlias in the ground, because they come up so early compared to shipped in dahlias. But again, you always take a risk when you leave your dahlias in the ground over the winter. They may not come back. There's lots of weeds in these beds, but this dahlia bed at the top has something cool. There was one year where I planted ranunculus on top of my dahlia beds, but it didn't really work that well because I planted them in January. It's a terrible time to plant ranunculus. Don't do that, but I had missed the fall window. I didn't want to wait until the spring, and that just didn't work. But look, this is a ranunculus. So that's another thing. Maybe I should experiment with leaving my corms in the ground. Maybe the raised bed kind of helped this corm not rot, but it's very unlikely. Like, I planted this whole thing with ranunculus, and I think that's a weed. That's a weed, so not that. But this right here, there's 1, 2, 3. So 3 came back out of the whole bed, but I wasn't really taking any precautions with, there's a 4th one. I wasn't taking any precautions. I know growers that have tarped their dahlias and ranunculus beds over the winter so they don't get wet. That's an option I can think about. But I just thought it was neat that some of these ranunculus have, survived, but none of them are putting up buds or anything like the other ones. So I'm not sure if it did me any good. The garden does look a little disheveled and messy right now because it is. I'm going through a reorganization of all the garden beds. I'm taking the top layer of the boxes down to bring them closer to the ground. That is mainly because I've just felt this need or wish to get the plants into the actual ground and to get away from raised beds. It's just something I want to try, and there's so many different methods to growing flowers and growing plants. So that's just something I've wanted to do lately. So I'm taking the boxes down a layer so they'll all look similar to the dahlia beds, and I just eventually will no longer replace these boxes once they break down and will only grow directly into the ground. I do no-till gardening method, and I will be top dressing things and adding compost to the top, and I just think that the ground here is much healthier than what I'm providing my plants in the raised beds. When I pull these giant weeds out down here that's in the ground, there's so many earthworms, and the soil just seems so healthy. And the soil in my garden beds is very sandy and dry and requires a lot of water and inputs. And that's because this is a lot of compost. You can't plant directly into compost. You need a lot of other things in the soil to make it complete and healthy for the plants. So I am just over the years will be gently transitioning into gardening into the ground. But for now, we're just going to go from a double layer down to a single layer. And so that's why there is so much craziness going on in the garden. There's piles of dirt everywhere. I had asparagus here that got transplanted somewhere else. And then again, all the spots where the David Austin roses were at the ends of these beds, were moved is what you're seeing here, and those roses obviously were moved to the new rose garden. So that is why the garden is a mess, and that's okay because she's getting a makeover, and whenever I get it done is when it'll get done. Of course, I planned for this to be done kind of now for spring, but that didn't happen. There's also a bunch of tulips here, so we have to wait on those guys too, so not a big deal. Oh, look how pretty. Yeah, we have to wait on these tulips, but these are gorgeous. This tulip right here has to be so tall. Let's pull it. Let's pull this one for fun. Oh, look at that. There she is. Very tall tulip. Oh yeah, another thing. Sorry, my hair is like crazy. Another thing, I'm going to be transitioning to no-till tulip system that I learned on No Till Flowers podcast from Jenny. So I will be trying that next year, but one of the things she talks about is the extremely long stem length that you'll get on your tulips. So I won't be digging trenches. I'll be doing her no-till system. So I will link Jenny and her podcast about tulips below so that maybe that's something you're interested in trying too. Yeah, see the height on there? 18 to 20 inches. 4-inch spacing. That's probably similar to the egg carton style. These might be a little closer together than that. Okay, these right here, I'm not really feeling these this year. And I probably won't grow these again. They're just not the color palette that I'm in the mood for. Now, if this were October, I would be so obsessed with this. But for spring, I'm just not really feeling it. This orange right here is more gentle. It's a little more apricot-y, I guess. But I probably am not going to do much orange in the future, honestly. I guess I could do like orange and yellow tulip bunches, but they're just not really calling to me. So if I do some orange and yellow, maybe a lot less. But you can see I'm kind of ignoring them. They're not really my favorite. Now these are amazing. These fringed white tulips, love these. But I also like a lot of white, and those aren't really selling that great either, like straight bunches of white. Honestly, I don't think I should be making assessments yet about what's selling great and what's not. So I take all that back. But I'm just not in the mood for something like this in March and April. So probably a no for me on these next year. Okay, I was out here picking tulips and I found this. I have a Cafe au lait dahlia planted here. Every year I try to move her. I try to move her to the dahlia bed, and obviously I miss pieces of the tuber that have eyes on it, and she comes back. So I've propagated her once again this year. We will have Cafe au lait dahlia on this trellis. This will be the 3rd year in a row. Okay, so say you're like me and you have hundreds of tulips too many and you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, because harvesting tulips is a big job. Sometimes it's a multiple times a day you have to go out and pick tulips if you want to get them at the exact perfect stage. If they bloom out in your field, you've probably lost the opportunity to pull those tulips if you're making them to sell. Now, if you want to enjoy them for yourself, you can ignore all of this. But say you are trying to sell cut flowers and you're like me and you oops big time on how many tulips you bought. The strategy that I'm doing right now is I'm going out and I'm only harvesting things that are in the perfect stage, and everything else is going to stay out for pollinators and for beauty, and it's going to make my garden look so pretty. So those ones are going to stay out. And I'm also playing favorites. If there's orange or bright yellow or red tulips, I'm just kind of leaving those right now. And I'm focusing on these white ones, which are my favorite. And I don't care what anybody else thinks. If I want these ones, these are the ones I'm going to pick. Now I have these fringe tulips in a variety of stages, and I'm going to put them in the cooler so I can learn and see what I can get away with. So I have some that are like this. You can barely see the little fringe at the top, and then this one is like pretty much open. So we're going to try putting all those in the cooler, and we're going to see what happens. So I already know that I'm not going to sell every single tulip bulb. That's one of the keys, I think, for tulips being profitable, is that you need to sell mostly everything. I'm way beyond that at this point. We're in the learning process point here. So I'm harvesting things at the right stages. I'm learning how to do that. I'm learning how to do that more efficiently. That takes some of the urgency and the burden off of me to pull every single tulip, because I just know that's not going to happen. And that's okay. And next year I'll order less tulips and it'll all be good. So be choosy, pick your favorites, leave the rest. And that is my advice on if you are overwhelmed and have too many tulips like I do. All right. Also, something I wanted to point out real quick with harvesting is that these double tulips, that podcast I listened to, double tulips need more time. So this to me looks like the perfect time to harvest this, but actually I think it may need a little more time to be a little more colored up. That's not the case for singles. The instant you can tell what color a single is going to be is when you want to harvest it. So this right here, I know is a yellow tulip, like you can tell. So this is the time to harvest a single. I'm still learning and getting better at this, but I'm really tempted to pull all of these doubles, but I'm not going to because I think they need a little more time. Otherwise, they may not open. This one that I pulled has a little more color on it, maybe closer to the right stage. And these ones have even more color. So I'm hoping I am learning what the best stage is for pulling these doubles out. This bouquet I just pulled right here, these beautiful buttercup yellow tulips, are on behalf of my aunt. I know she would love these because yellow is her favorite color. I'm going to be seeing her, but probably not soon enough to bring these, but I'm going to put them in the cooler and see what happens. So if everyone could send their good vibes to these yellow tulips, we're going to try to make them last 4 weeks in the cooler, which you could do, but they're already blown. They're not going to get any more unblown in the field, so I'm going to put them in the cooler and see what happens. Aren't they beautiful? I love this color. Let's check the variety too. Okay. Pale yellow with red and green. Maybe that's the foliage? Not sure about the red and green. But pale yellow, mid to late, 18 to 20 inches tall. And another cooler experiment will be saving these pink, white, and purple for my mom. So I'll be seeing my mom and my aunt around the same time, and we're gonna see how long I can keep these blown tulips in the cooler. Might not make it, but they'll understand. Now the other thing I'm doing here is processing my tulips. And I do that in multiple stages. I cut all the bulbs off. You can do your own research on Whether you'd like to store your tulips with the bulb on or the bulb off. And you see how I'm reaching? That's not really good. So I'm gonna switch sides. But the reason I do this in steps and I cut all the bulbs off first is because I got tired of picking up my snips and putting them down to like clean leaves off and then snip bulbs, and so I just find this easier. Everyone will find their own way of harvesting and processing things. I know it's probably better to have these up on a table so that you could do this standing, but I just don't really have that this season. So for me, I just sit up on a ledge of my garden box, almost like I'm sitting on a yoga block, and I'm sitting up nice and tall, and I'm just processing this way, but that may not be comfortable for you. So whatever you think will work. This one's a little short. It's kind of hard to store, so I separate these out, and instead of buckets, I put them in yogurt containers, like the big ones, and that's the perfect size thing for those, and we didn't have to buy them. So that's how I do my short tulips. And I found that for everything else, the container that I like to use instead of a bucket are trash cans, like little small trash cans. They are usually very inexpensive. You can get them practically anywhere. And I use round ones for my shop and for displays, but I just recently bought some rectangular shaped ones that I will use in my cooler, just for space, to try to save space. You know, you lose a little space when your containers are round, but I think they look nice, so that's why I use them in my shop. And then in my cooler, I'm going to use rectangular trash cans. This reminds me of when I was growing up and I used to shuck corn on the porch. This is what this makes me feel. This reminds me of. This little curve on the end is not going to sit well in a bucket, so getting rid of that. Oops. Okay. Yellow. here's my trash can. And this is a good size too. It allows quite a decent harvest. That's another reason I choose bulb off for storage, and I pull the leaves off because I can fit a lot more tulips in there. So maybe it's not ideal, but for my circumstances with the space I have, that's the best option. All right, that is all I have for you this week for this video. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, and the best way you can support me and my channel is to subscribe and share it with your flower loving friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.